Hey guys, it's Danny. Today I'll answer a question I get a lot on my channel: how to make my orchids' blooms last longer. So I'll try to give you some tips on how to get the most time possible out of your orchid flowers. First of all, flowers have a limited lifespan. You cannot have an orchid in bloom forever, but there are ways to ensure that the blooms stay open and nice as much as possible. Let's talk temperatures. Most orchids will prefer intermediate temperatures and will hold their blooms longer if they don't experience too hot or too cold temperatures. So when purchasing an orchid, make sure you don't let it stay in the heat or in the cold for too long. So it would be better to perform all grocery shoppings prior to purchasing an orchid, rather than letting it stay in the car on a hot summer day or freezing in a winter day. When choosing a place for your orchid in your home, keep temperatures in mind as well and try to avoid areas that get very cold or very hot drafts. An open window in winter or the flow of an air conditioner can especially affect buds and can lead to yellowing and dropping before they even open. This will translate in less flowers and a shorter blooming time overall. Hot air coming from a radiator can affect blooms and buds as well. Flowers that are already open can start to dry on the edges and eventually drop if they are exposed to hot air drafts. This doesn't mean you cannot keep an orchid in a room that has air conditioning or heating, but just make sure the airflow coming from these devices doesn't hit the orchid directly. Intermediate temperatures between 22 and 25 degrees Celsius or 70 and 77 degrees Fahrenheit will be favorable for most of the orchids commonly available in stores. Now let's talk about light. Too little light can influence the length of the bloom sometimes, as it translates into the orchid not being able to perform photosynthesis properly and giving up on its blooms prematurely. On the opposite end, direct hot sun can dehydrate and burn both flowers and the orchid itself. Even the most sun-tolerant orchids can get affected if temperatures are warm and the sun directly hits the orchid. So try to find a place that benefits from bright shade or filtered sunlight, like behind a sheer curtain. Air humidity can affect blooms as well. The drier the air is, the more blooms can become dehydrated. Air humidity of 40% or more is ideal for most common orchids, and some ways to improve it in a dry environment is by the use of an ultrasonic humidifier or some pebble trays with water underneath the orchid. Many homes do have adequate humidity for the orchid hybrids available in stores, but if you know the air in your home is very dry, you can try to improve it by the use of a humidifier or a humidity tray. When it comes to watering, we need to be careful as well. Too frequent watering can suffocate the root system of an orchid. If roots die, the orchid cannot absorb water for hydration. This will inevitably make it give up its blooms prematurely. Too little water can have the very same effect, by dehydrating the orchid as much as to make it drop flowers. It is better to use lukewarm or room temperature water. Stay away from hot or freezing water, as this can affect not only the blooms but the health of the orchid as well. For most orchids, it is better to water as soon as the medium is dry or as it approaches dryness. This will depend on the type of orchid you have as well, so this leads me to the next topic to have in mind: the type of orchid you are growing. The most common orchid in stores is the Phalaenopsis orchid, but there are many other species widely available, such as Oncidiums, Boracias, Dendrobiums, Cattleyas, and Vandas. Knowing their care requirements and providing adequate conditions will inevitably influence the blooming time and even bloom count of your orchid. So when you have a new orchid, just try to find information about its care along with the things I mentioned earlier. This will help you enjoy the orchid's blooms longer and even help you rebloom your orchids in the future. Some orchids can even rebloom from existing flower spikes, like the Phalaenopsis orchids, and it's not uncommon to have this orchid in bloom for months. I have made some video tutorials on the care of the most common orchids, so check the description below if you'd like to learn more about them. Another reason why some orchids might lose flowers fast is the presence of ethylene gas in the air. It has been observed that ripening fruit, smoke, and some air fresheners can have a bad effect on many flowers, including orchid flowers, making them wilt before their time. So just to be safe, don't place fruit next to your orchids, or use air fresheners in the room where you keep your orchids. Now let's talk about bloom appearance. Besides long-lasting flowers, we would like to have them looking pretty as well. Try to avoid water droplets on the petals, especially for those orchids with thin petals, such as Phalaenopsis and Cattleyas. Water droplets left on the petals can lead to a fungal infection called botrytis, which will show up as dark gray or black spots. If the infection is severe, flowers might look more dead than alive. Then, make sure the orchid is placed in an area where small children and pets cannot reach it. If an orchid falls, there is a great chance the flowers will break or get very damaged. Sometimes the entire flower spike can break, as it's pretty fragile. Needless to say, the blooming time will be ended abruptly, as many of the flower spikes don't live long in vases with water, like other cut plants. But if the flower spikes do manage to break, try to place them in a vase with water, and hopefully you can get a few more days out of the blooms. A good cut flower, though, is the Dendrobium Phalaenopsis type. A healthy orchid can sustain many blooms and even rebloom, so this is an essential aspect when expecting long blooming times. Sometimes we don't always receive the healthiest orchid, but it is in our capabilities to make them flourish. So even if the first blooming was not as great as expected, a second blooming can be very rewarding. All we need to do is offer the correct care. Many orchids have blooms that last from a few weeks to a few months. And as a personal experience, I had a Phalaenopsis orchid in bloom for more than 1 year, as it continuously branched and produced flowers. I hope you found this video useful, and I hope you do enjoy your orchid flowers for a long time. If you'd like to see more orchid videos from me, simply subscribe to my channel. I post on a daily basis. Also, if you have questions or suggestions for videos, feel free to leave me a comment. I check my comments every day. If you ever wish to send me a letter, you can do so at the address you see on the screen and in the description below. Thank you for watching and supporting my channel. If you click on the left side of your screen, you're gonna be directed to orchidnature.com, where you'll find care sheets, identification sheets, and also you can talk to us in the forum section. And on the right side of your screen, you can click to watch another orchid video. Thank you for joining. I'll see you next time. Bye!